I'll never forget that Monday morning. I woke up like any other work day, not even knowing I was about to walk into a mess of arrogance and prejudice that would leave a mark on my life and, to be honest, the lives of a few others too. The sky over Chicago was gray, the wind biting, and I remember standing outside Granite Trust Bank just breathing in, steeling myself for another day of business meetings and endless calls. I didn't look like much, I guess, just plain old me, Leah Carter, in navy slacks, a simple white blouse, nothing fancy, no designer bag, nothing that screamed wealth or power. Maybe that was my first mistake. Or maybe, looking back, it was my secret weapon. When I pushed open those heavy glass doors, I could feel the temperature drop. I'd been there before, always for business, but never for anything this big. A wire transfer in the millions, something that would set my company up for years to come. I had an appointment with the branch manager herself. The lobby was bustling, polished floors, modern art on the walls, the kind of place you walk in and immediately feel like you have to prove you belong. I stepped up to the reception, smiled, and gave my name, expecting the usual, "Please have a seat, we'll be right with you." Instead, the receptionist, a young guy with a stiff tie and not a hint of a smile, looked me up and down, then down again at his computer. His eyes lingered on my skin just a beat too long. "Are you sure you have an appointment here?" he asked, loud enough that the people nearby turned to look. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I kept my voice calm. Said yes. My appointment was for 10 a.m. Ed handed over my ID. He looked at it like he'd never seen a CEO before and said, "You'll need to wait over there," pointing at the chairs by the door, nowhere near the main waiting area, and certainly not in the velvet rope VIP section where I'd seen other clients, white, older, dripping in jewelry, getting coffee and attentive smiles. I took my seat, feeling eyes on me, the kind of stares that don't come from curiosity, but from judgment. It wasn't even subtle. Two older women in expensive coats kept glancing at me, whispering, and finally one actually muttered, "I suppose they let anyone in here these days." I pretended not to hear, but it burned. 5, maybe 10 minutes passed. Every time the door opened, another client was greeted, shown to the executive side of the lobby. I sat there, clutching my folder and phone, trying not to let my anger show on my face. Then she arrived, Linda Hawthorne, the branch manager herself. If ever there was someone who wore her authority like armor, it was her. Heels clicking, blazer crisp, a practiced smile that froze when she looked at me. She walked right up, and before she even introduced herself, she said, "Excuse me, this area is for scheduled business clients. If you're here to open a regular account, the teller line is on the other side." I swear I had to take a breath before I answered. I told her my name, reminded her of my appointment, trying to keep my voice steady, not to give her the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. She frowned, checked her clipboard, then raised an eyebrow. "That's impossible. I don't have any appointments under that name. Are you sure you're at the right bank?" She said it loudly, for everyone to hear, as if she needed backup. I could feel every pair of eyes in that room weighing me. Was I about to make a scene? Was I some kind of imposter? I wanted to melt into the chair. Instead, I quietly offered to show her the email confirmation. She snatched my phone, scanned the message, and then handed it back with a little too much force. "Fine, let's get this over with. But next time, please use the online portal before coming in," she said, turning on her heel and expecting me to follow. As we walked past the VIP area, a security guard named Bill, built like a linebacker with a "don't mess with me" face, watched me the way you watch someone you expect to cause trouble. Linda led me to a glass-walled office, left the door open so everyone could see, and took her seat, sighing like she couldn't believe she had to deal with this. "Now, what exactly are you here for?" she asked. I told her I needed to execute a wire transfer for my company and handed over the paperwork, board approval, account info, everything by the book. She barely glanced at it. "Where did you get this money?" she asked, her voice flat and cold. "We have to be very careful with large transactions, especially these days. You understand." The implication was clear as day. I'd seen it before. Black woman, big sum of money, must be something shady. I tried to keep it together, but the anger inside me was boiling. I explained, as politely as I could, that I was the founder and CEO, and this was a standard business transfer. She looked at me, dead in the eye, and said, "Well, we'll need to verify all this. You can wait outside while I confirm with compliance." No one else had to leave the office to wait. No one else was questioned in front of everyone. But I nodded, gathered my things, and walked out. As I passed the reception, the guy with the stiff tie smirked and shook his head, muttering something about always trying to pull one over. That's when I saw Tom, one of the tellers, make a face and laugh with a customer as I walked by. I felt humiliated, angry, but more than that, tired. Tired of having to prove myself again and again. Tired of being looked at like I didn't belong. I waited by the window, watching traffic go by, feeling the embarrassment settle into a cold knot in my stomach. Time dragged on. I could see Linda through the office glass, laughing with a white-haired man in a suit, clearly a preferred client. After what felt like forever, Linda waved at Bill, the security guard, and he made his way over. "Ma'am, can you come with me?" he said, loud enough that people looked up from their phones. My heart was pounding, but I followed, telling myself not to let them see me sweat. Bill led me to a back office and said, "We're going to need to ask you a few questions, just routine, you know, for the bank's safety." I could feel my fists clench, but I stayed calm. Answered every question. Showed every document. He barely listened. He was just going through the motions, making it clear he didn't believe a word I said. That's when a younger woman, Jenny, poked her head in. She worked behind the counter, always quiet, never really noticed before. She gave me a little nod and whispered, "I'm sorry. I know who you are. I've seen the CEO memo." Then, as quickly as she appeared, she vanished back into the main room. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because, for the first time that morning, I felt seen. Someone actually recognized me for who I was. Bill left me alone for another 10 minutes, then came back, looking uncomfortable. "The manager says you can come back in, but we'll be keeping an eye on this transaction." That was it. No apology, nothing. I walked back into Linda's office, this time my patience worn razor thin. I sat down, folded my hands, and looked her dead in the eye. "I think there's something you should know," I said, my voice low, not angry, but steady. She looked at me like I was a nuisance she wished would disappear. I pulled up an internal memo on my phone, the one Jenny had pointed out, announcing my confidential visit as a VIP client and minority investor in Granite Trust's parent company. I slid the phone across the desk. "Maybe take another look at the name on your schedule," I said, barely containing my bitterness. I watched the color drain from her face as she read. The room went silent, so silent I could hear my own heartbeat. She stammered, tried to recover, but I cut her off. You've made it perfectly clear who you think belongs here and who doesn't. But let me remind you, your actions have consequences, not just for me, but for every client who walks through these doors. I could see Bill outside the office, suddenly looking a lot less sure of himself. Tom, the teller who'd laughed earlier, was now staring at the floor. I told Linda, point blank, that I would be reporting her conduct, along with Bill's and Tom's, to the regional director. Just then, Jenny walked in with Anthony Wade, the regional director himself, a tall man with a calm, serious face. "Ms. Carter," he said, extending a hand, "we've been expecting you. I'm so sorry for the way you've been treated." Now, the entire office was watching. Linda tried to explain, tried to make excuses about protocol and misunderstandings, but it was too late. Mr. Wade was having none of it. He listened as I laid out everything, being dismissed, publicly humiliated, accused, forced to prove my worth over and over. He didn't interrupt, didn't brush it off. He turned to Linda, and in front of everyone, told her she was suspended pending a full investigation. Bill, too, sent home on the spot. Tom, the teller, was called into his office. The whole mood in the branch flipped. Suddenly, no one wanted to meet my eyes, and the people who'd laughed earlier now looked like they wished they could disappear. Jenny, the one person who did the right thing, got a quiet thank you from me. She deserved it. Mr. Wade escorted me himself to the executive lounge, offered me coffee, and sat with me while the transfer went through in minutes, no questions asked. When it was done, I stood up, thanked him, and walked back through that lobby with my head high. I could feel the shift in the room. The same people who'd mocked and doubted me were silent now, watching as their idea of who belonged here got turned upside down. I didn't gloat, didn't throw anyone's words back at them, even though a part of me wanted to. I just wanted to get out of there, to breathe, to remind myself that I'd stood my ground and made sure no one else would have to go through what I did. At least not in that branch, not with those people in charge. It didn't end with just that morning. Linda lost her job. The investigation found other complaints, stories like mine, only quieter, buried until someone finally spoke up. Bill was let go for misconduct. Tom was written up and put on probation, with a warning that any future incidents would mean termination. The local press got wind of the story. Bank managers suspended over discrimination allegations. And soon, the Granite Trust headquarters issued a public statement promising changes, new training, a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Jenny got promoted, and I made sure her name was in every report. She was the only one with enough guts to do the right thing when no one else would. I didn't celebrate. I just went home, sat in my quiet kitchen, and let the weight of it all settle. I was proud, yes, but mostly I was exhausted, tired of fighting battles like this, tired of seeing people make the same snap judgments over and over. But I knew I'd done what I had to do. And as I lay in bed that night, I thought about the next Leah Carter, who'd walk into Granite Trust, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she'd be met with a little more respect, a little less suspicion, because one person refused to stay silent. And that, more than anything, is why I told this story.